In this episode on the Health Spot with Omar podcast, Omar talks with Fallon Morrell. She is an author, public speaker, and the president of the Weston A Price Foundation. Her philosophy is that we should all be eating nutrient-dense foods of our ancestors that allows ourselves, and most importantly, our children and grandchildren to enjoy vibrant health, which is the birthright of every human being on the planet. She believes that children today are needlessly suffering the pain of chronic disease, mental illness, and even premature death by misinformation on nutrition such as low-fat diets, seed oils, consuming industrialized food, and wants to show the scientific validation of traditional and sacred foods of the past while honoring the research of Dr. Weston A Price, a dentist who traveled the world in 1930s and 1940s to understand how isolated and non-industrialized cultures had the ease of reproduction generation after generation, free from tooth decay and robust health. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guests. They do not reflect the hosts or the Health Spot with Omar podcast personal views or opinions. We do not take responsibility for any ideas expressed during the podcast interview. The information contained in this show is for information purposes only. It is not intended for medical advice and should not replace your relationship with your healthcare practitioner. We encourage listeners to do further research following all episodes this podcast.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. I can hear you. Yeah, I think it's just my voice. I just have to project my voice a little louder. If my cats are screaming, just ignore them. Right, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. I really appreciate it. So for the listeners who don't know who you are, could you give a little explanation of who you are and what is it that you do?
Kind of almost, I was kind of dragged into this, let's put it like that, and got an idea to write a book in 1990, and it just became an overwhelming thought that I had to write this book. So I wrote Nourishing Traditions, and it puts the work of Dr. Weston Price into practical form for the modern cook and the modern reader. And the book kind of took off on, nothing I did, it just sort of took off. And then, along with my co-author, Mary Enig, I founded the Weston A Price Foundation. That was in 1999. And the foundation has provided accurate nutrition information to the public all this time. We publish a journal and do a podcast, and we do a conference.
Why is it that there's a misinformation of nutrition these days? Why is it that there's something missing?
There's definitely something missing. Basically, what conventional nutrition does is substitute plant-based oils, seed oils, for animal fats, and demonizes animal fats, and all of the foods that Dr. Price discovered were valued by traditional people for making them healthy and creating healthy babies. So this is first and foremost animal fats, organ meats, certain types of seafood, eggs are very nutrient-dense food, butter, and raw milk is another nutrient-dense food. And all of these we're told not to eat, that they're dangerous, that they will they'll kill us, or they're full of cholesterol and they'll give us heart disease. And none of this is true. We have followed this bad advice to our detriment, and we're seeing the tragic consequences in our children today who suffer from so many maladies. And then the increasing numbers of couples who can't get pregnant. And that's because they're not eating a kind of diet that gives them the nutrition they need to produce a baby.
And for those people who don't know who Dr. Weston A Price is, who is Dr. Weston A Price? Because I'm aware of who he is. I think it'll be interesting for the listeners to know, because they're like, oh, Dr. Weston A Price? Who is this guy?
Yeah, so he was a dentist, and he had a practice in the 30s and 40s. And he was a man who asked probing questions, and he kept saying, well, why are my patients so sick? Why do I see so much cavities, infection in the mouth, and what he called dental deformities, which meant crowded and crooked teeth, overbites, underbites. Today they're calling it the epidemic of narrow jaws, but that's what he was seeing, and he didn't think this was normal or right or healthy. And in fact, the world was opening up at that time, and the very first impression that explorers and anthropologists got when they went to an isolated culture was what beautiful teeth people had. He had a nephew who worked for the National Geographic, and that's what they talked about. So he decided to see for himself, and he embarked on a series of investigations that lasted 10 years from about 1931 to 1941. And he wrote these up in a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And he also took photographs, and these photographs are just amazing when we see what wide faces people had, beautiful straight teeth, very well-formed bodies, and by his report, all very healthy. They had no chronic disease, no infectious disease. And so then he said, well, okay, I found these healthy people. Now we need to know what they're eating. So he described their foods, and he took samples home to his laboratory in Cleveland, Ohio, and analyzed them for vitamins and minerals. And what he found was wherever they lived, whether it was in Alaska or the South Seas or Africa or Switzerland, wherever they lived, the diet was nutrient dense. It had at least 4 times the minerals in the diet compared to the American diet of his day, and 10 times of the fat-soluble vitamins. Now, the fat-soluble vitamins were vitamins A, D, and K, and we get these exclusively from animal foods, particularly the fats. So grass-fed butter has, with cows eating grass and out in the sunlight, has very high levels of A, D, and K, and that's what we should be eating. Not margarine, not spreads, and not butter from confinement cows.
I feel like we should do this in stages. So you're talking about the health of the mother, that they should be in a well nutritious diet as well while they're pregnant with the baby, right?
Before.
Oh yes, of course, before, yeah.
At least 6 months before, this is what traditional cultures did. They had a diet of what we call sacred foods, and this diet was very rich in vitamins A, D, and K, and the minerals and zinc and calcium. And we have a diet for pregnant and nursing mothers on our website, which is westonaprice.org, by the way. So we've had hundreds, if not thousands, of women do this diet, and the babies are just amazing. They're so healthy and calm, don't cry, just grow and become wonderful.
So, yes, so you're saying about the sacred foods. What would you say are sacred foods?
Grass-fed butter, cod liver oil, liver. And, it's easier for you to get liver in Europe. You can go to a pub and get liver pate. And that once a week. It's easy,
Yeah.
Or liver sausage.
Oh, okay, interesting. I never tried a liver sausage before, but what feedback I usually get is like there's too much vitamin A in liver for a pregnant.
Yeah, well, a synthetic vitamin A you can get too much of, there's no question. But the natural vitamin A, when it's balanced with the vitamins D and K, is not toxic, and we really need it. And isn't it interesting that the establishment has created this fear porn around the fundamental vitamin that Dr. Price discovered in these foods was vitamin A.
6 months before pregnancy is very important to at least, get into a healthy diet.
Fact.
Yes, because I just did a podcast. She helps people get pregnant, and she's just talking about DNA fragmentation in sperm and how now some sperm have 2 heads because they're nutritionally all over the place. They're not looking after themselves, and
you're already there. Eggs come from your grandmother.
Yes,
but the sperm are always being created, and it's nutrition again. So the men need the same diet. They need to eat oysters. They need to eat liver. They need to eat butter, and not be afraid of the fats. And, another great food is unpasteurized ale or beer, which is full of B vitamins. It's fermented, and so, you can get this diet at a pub.
So
Lots of
why?
ham and oysters. Yeah.
That's it. So why is everyone not eating the right way? Why is everyone not eating the right way?
Because they are tempted by the junk food, which has addiction components in it that make you can't stop eating. And because they're told it doesn't matter, or these good foods are bad for you. I mean, many reasons. Our job in the modern world, we are surrounded. It's like the children in the forest. We can't see the trees for the forest, and we are surrounded by lies and deliberate lies, and we have to learn to distinguish between lies and truth. And that's what the Weston A Price Foundation is for, is to provide you with the truth. We have a section called Children's Health, and go there, and there's a section on pregnancy, sacred foods, diet for pregnant women, all that stuff. And then we have a whole nother website on raw milk called realmilk.com. And I do think we have a section for the UK on how to find raw milk.
I use it.
Raw milk in the UK.
I use it. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
And
Thank you.
it's a wonderful, wonderful food. Not only because it provides you with this very usable source of calcium, but because it's a detoxifying food.
So how is it a detoxifying food?
Well, raw milk has whey in it, and whey is full of glutathione, and they're detoxifying proteins that grab bad stuff and take it out of the body. And people
Definitely.
used to go on the raw milk fasts where they only drank raw milk, and it was a great fast because not only were you getting rid of the bad stuff, but you were also nourishing yourself at the same time. And you don't have to use any of your digestion for raw milk; it digests itself. So you're not putting any energy into that.
So children are getting sicker and sicker. I know you mentioned the vaccines. I know you mentioned that. And but there's other stuff going on in the environment, isn't there?
Well, there's a lot of toxins in the environment, and that's not good. But we have to remember that there were a lot of toxins in the traditional environment also, in the form of smoke. And people lived in smoky cottages that didn't have chimneys. In Africa, they deliberately went inside their houses with fires inside, and because the smoke kept the mosquitoes away. So people were always breathing in smoke, and smoke is very toxic. But they didn't have lung disease, they didn't get sick. And why is that? Because they had a lot of vitamin A in the diet. And vitamin A is our protection against toxins. So, we want a clean environment. What we have in the modern world, well, two things that put us at an advantage is, one, we have clean houses. We're not living in sewage and, like in the old cities. And the second one is we have salt. Everyone has access to salt. It's cheap, it's plentiful. And salt is extremely important for digestion, for neurological function, for hormone production. And in the old days, it was kind of iffy whether you could get salt. And that's the way that dictators controlled people, was controlling their salt. I mean, the whole thing about Gandhi in India, the British had put this huge tax on salt, and people couldn't get the salt they needed. And he protested against the salt tax, and he was successful. If you grow up without salt or with very little salt, you'll be retarded. You'll be stupid. And
Well,
they tell you not to give salt to your babies and not to eat salt while you're pregnant. It's just such an incredible lie.
and is that because essentially the essential minerals are in there?
Well, you need sodium in salt for your brain cells. They need sodium, and you need sodium to digest carbohydrates because the enzymes for that digestion are sodium dependent. But the chloride in salt is what you need to make hydrochloric acid in your stomach for digesting meat. So I always say the creator didn't put a salt taste in your mouth to torture you, but because you need salt, you need to put salt on your food. We need at least 1.5 teaspoons of salt per day. That's the minimum. And they're trying to tell us that you should only have 3/4 of a teaspoon or half that. And in 1900, our average was 3 teaspoons of salt per day, almost a tablespoon of salt per day.
Wow.
Disease or any of these terrible things. Now, it's better if your salt is unrefined, because when they refine the salt, what do they put in it? Aluminum.
Oh, is it?
So you want unrefined salt, which has all of the trace minerals, a lot of magnesium. I think about 10% of the minerals in unrefined salts are magnesium. So, yeah, you need to choose the right kind of salt. But the point is that salt is readily available, and we don't have that challenge anymore of getting enough salt.
The first thing when I mention to people that, oh, you should have more salt in your diet, the first thing they say, oh, blood pressure. That's what they say in England anyway. So do you get that a lot?
Yeah, there's not really any correlation. About 10% of the population is salt sensitive in that respect. But for many people, low salt diet raises the blood pressure because it's stressful for the body.
When I go to the dentist and I say, oh, I don't want any fluoride treatment in this session. And the first dentist said, why is that? And I said, oh, well, there's studies about it getting into the organs and also IQ as well. And then I think a minute later, she said, well, it's in your tap water. And then I said, well, I've got a whole house water filter system, so I don't get it.
Well, what fluoride does is replace iodine in thyroid compounds. So the thyroid doesn't work as well. The thyroid hormones don't work as well. And then you get a lot of retardation, mental retardation. Is that what you want for your kids?
No, I do not want that for my children at all. So are you suggesting children, parents can just, as long as they're feeding them healthy, and then we can get into breastfeeding? Because I think the argument is that there's no vitamin K in breast milk.
Oh, yes, there's vitamin K in breast milk. And there's vitamin K in the cord blood. They should be let the cord blood go into the child. I mean, it's just an excuse.
Yeah, because I believe there's some things about delayed cord clamping.
Yes, that's very important. You let all the blood go into the baby before you cord. So it takes about 10 minutes. And that's a really good store of iron, and there's vitamin K in there. And yeah, that's something we really need to do. They're too quick to cut these cords. And they are starting to do this now, is to let all the cord blood go in. One of the dangers in babies is anemia. And so mom needs to be eating liver, so there's iron in her breast milk. You need to do the cord blood. And I strongly warn against exclusive breastfeeding after 6 months because there's not enough iron in mother's milk to provide adequate iron for the baby. So in traditional cultures, they started solid food between 4 and 6 months. No culture did exclusive breastfeeding. They all breastfed a long time, but they didn't do exclusive breastfeeding. And you see these exclusively breastfed babies. They're very pale and clingy and shy, and that's all this is signs of anemia, and that can lead to mental retardation also. So we recommend, depending on the baby, a big, robust baby, it can be 4 months. Otherwise, you can wait a little longer. But the first food should be egg yolk, which is very rich in iron and rich in vitamin A, which you need to absorb that iron. And you put salt on it. In other words, you can make a fried egg with a soft yolk and put salt on it and feed that to the baby. You can put your finger in it and let the baby lick it if you want. And then the second food is pureed poultry liver with some butter and salt. And the babies love it, and this is just the absolute best food for them.
If people choose to still breastfeed, they can feed that alongside the breastfeeding?
Well, of course. Of course, you want to continue breastfeeding. Breastfeed till a year, and some go longer. But once you stop breastfeeding, then you want to give them raw milk.
Okay. Well, that's something I wanted to get onto. So on social media, there was a debate with a medical doctor who's has a nutritional background where he can look at studies and stuff. And it was against someone who's been on the Weston A Price Foundation as well. And so basically, it was a for and against debate about raw milk versus pasteurized milk. And to be honest, it it didn't feel like there was enough evidence for the raw milk side.
Oh, there's a lot of evidence. There's a number of studies out of Europe showing that children brought up on raw milk have less asthma,
Yeah.
less infectious disease, fewer allergies, fewer respiratory problems. You know, all of these things that plague very young children, much, much lower on the raw milk. But the other thing is, see, what we do to milk today, we're not just pasteurizing the milk, we're ultra pasteurizing. And that takes the milk to 284 degrees, way above the boiling point. It's a very violent process. And the proteins in milk are extremely fragile, and they're all warped and distorted and messed up by this process. And so the milk becomes highly allergenic. And what they never tell you is that there's 20 to 30 deaths. This isn't illness, this is deaths from anaphylactic shock to pasteurized milk per year. So it's very dangerous, and you never know when such an anaphylactic shock could happen. And there's no deaths from raw milk. They say there have been 3 in the last 20 years, but we know that they're just making those up. And it's just so highly nutritious and protective. A child on raw milk is going to be calm. They won't have rashes. They have good, strong bones. What they really need to do is a study here in the States or UK. Just compare the health of raw milk fed children to pasteurized. After all, mother's milk is raw. It's raw milk. And they're not out there saying you have to pasteurize your mother's milk. Because they know that mother's milk is the very best thing for babies with all these immune factors. I mean, the more we study it, the more we discover. And, if you pasteurize mother's milk, those disappear.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I saw your post on your social media page, and that's exactly what you said, that it's like you're getting the breast milk from the mother and you're cooking it and then you're feeding it. You wouldn't do that.
Yeah. And by the way, there was a study out of China in very recently, like 2020, 2019, and they looked at what processing did to the proteins in milk. So they looked at boiling, they looked at freeze drying, microwaving, but all of them, and then they fed it to rats, and all of them, the rats developed problems with the spleen and the liver, and they couldn't do the mazes anymore. Their memory was affected. So that's what you're doing to your children when you give them pasteurized milk. Again, the fluoride, the pasteurized milk, the vaccinations, the anemia, all of these things are going to make your kids stupid. And there's no need to look further in why the IQ is falling year after year. It should be falling.
What if a mother cannot breastfeed? What are the options?
So we have this recipe for baby formula that's based on raw milk and other whole food ingredients. Thousands of babies have gotten this formula, including 2 of my grandsons. And they have just thrived on it. Nobody's died. Nobody's sick from it. With the exception of babies who are already quite sick and have digestive problems. And then we make some adjustments to the formula to help that. But if you can't give a child, or for one reason or another you choose not to give a child breast milk, which is raw milk from a human, what is the next best thing? It's raw milk from another mammal. I mean, obviously, and that's what people did all over the world. They gave goat milk, cow's milk, sheep's milk, camel milk, water buffalo milk, reindeer milk. That's what they gave to their babies. Did I say camel's milk?
Yeah, you did.
Here's what the problem with formula is. So babies need a lot of cholesterol. They can't make cholesterol. They need cholesterol, and they get it from the milk, from the raw milk. They get it from the fat in the milk. And when you look at the ingredients in milk replacer for animals, the third ingredient is animal fat, because they know the animals won't do well and they'll die if you don't give them animal fat. Human formula is made with skim milk and vegetable oil. There's no animal fat, there's no cholesterol in human formula. It is designed to make them sick and to make them stupid. And also, the other thing is, a baby boy, the first 6 months of life, is supposed to be producing testosterone the same level as an adult male. And that programs the baby boy to express male characteristics at puberty. If you are not giving cholesterol to that baby boy, and if on top of it you're giving soy formula, which is full of estrogens, that programming will not happen. And the likelihood is that the child will end up gender confused because the programming has not happened in the first 6 months of life. You do not want to give your child commercial formula. So what else can you do? You give them raw milk, which is what they get at the breast.
It's funny how this community works, because you ask one person and they say, oh, I know someone who sells raw milk. And it turns out I've got someone who lives probably like 10 minutes away. He goes to a farm and gets raw milk, brings it home, and he sells it in a freezer. Yeah. Yeah, and it just makes it easier for the consumer, right? Because we can just literally go to our local neighbor.
Well, I think they actually can deliver raw milk too. I know they do a lot.
Yeah, actually they do. Yeah, they're right. Yeah. Hooks and Sons was the first raw milk guys I went, and they're on your website as well, the Real Milk website. The raw milk option is there. And what I did was, when I first tried it, and I gave it to my children as well.
And they should still be getting it.
Yeah, I mean, so my eldest, she gets a really bad reaction. She gets her eczema flares up on her face, unfortunately. So I would like to say that it doesn't work for everyone, but
Well,
for
that's true.
yeah, just like anything, right? So, but my youngest, she loves it. She thrives on it. What I did was, I actually asked the community, the people who were buying the raw milk, because when I went to the house to pick it up, there's like loads of people like literally taking like 10 jugs at a time home to feed this raw milk to their family. It's the guy who got the raw milk. I was like, before I purchased it, I said, so have you had any like reactions to this? Because this is before I didn't know anything. And he was like, I've been feeding raw milk to my children who are babies since they were babies, and they've been totally fine. Like in the bottle, straight there.
Demand is very high, and that gives me hope for the future.
Yeah.
Not everybody has swallowed all these lies, vaccination lies about milk, lies about butter.
So
lies out there. It's just a sea of lies.
So what triggered you at the time, Sally, that to be like, oh, hold on a sec, this isn't correct?
Well, I came from a family where people like to cook. My mother was a fabulous cook. We cooked with French cuisine. We were Francophiles. We had cream and butter and eggs, and so that's how I started cooking for my family. And just about that time, this low-fat lie was seeping into the public. And I read Dr. Price's book just at that time. And I realized that I was doing everything right, and my kids were obviously healthy. So I just continued on. Much later, I met Dr. Mary Enig, who was my co-author, and she, explained all the science to me. So, when the universe brings you knowledge, unique knowledge that other people don't have, you have an absolute obligation to share that knowledge. Otherwise, it's terrible karma. Keep that knowledge to yourself. So I wrote the book, Nourishing Traditions, and I've been trying to share this knowledge ever since.
You know, the Weston A Price Foundation. So are you the president of that foundation? Is that how it works?
President, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Still at it.
Brilliant, brilliant. I wanted to ask you, what's your view on nutraceuticals, supplementation? What do you think about those?
Well, I don't recommend any vitamins or minerals. You really need to get these from your food. Now, cod liver oil is something that I take and I recommend, but that's a food. It's not something that's made up unless it's been heated. And then they add synthetic vitamin A and D to it. You don't want that. I think the future of supplements is going to be the desiccated organ meats. Desiccated oysters that's something I take because I don't like oysters, but oysters are just a great source of zinc. So that's to me that's the future. And then herbs or herbal remedies, but it's not vitamins. Those are made in pretty horrible ways, actually. A lot of chemicals.
Okay.
Heat.
Yeah. What do you say to people who say, well, you're not going to get enough of the nutrients that you need from the food supplements? Why they prefer to have the nutraceuticals, because it gives them enough what they need. So let's say, for example, high doses of vitamin C, you're not going to be able to...
No, it creates imbalances. It'll deplete you of copper if you take high dose vitamin C. Yeah, I mean, what we're getting from our food is, not huge amounts, but it works when it comes from the food because it's with all the cofactors and it's just the right form, getting it in the right way, absorbing it in the right way.
And what's your response to passionate vegans about your dietary recommendations? I'd love to hear that.
Tell them is, veganism will age you. You'll have wrinkles very early if you practice veganism. That usually makes them listen. I wrote an article called "How Do Animals Feel About Being Killed for Meat?" It's on my blog.
Yeah.
And it starts off with this very interesting story of a friend of mine who grew up on a farm and they had beef cows. And every fall they had a solemn meeting at the kitchen table. And their beef cows were all named, and they voted on which one they would kill for their meat for the winter. And they voted on the cow's name, okay?
Yeah.
I can't tell this story without getting choked up. And the next day, they would go out, and the cow they voted on was standing aside, waiting for them.
Wow. Wow.
And that's the one that they killed for their meat. She was ready, or he was ready to go. That's what animals want to do. They want to make this sacrifice for us so we can be healthy. And if you turn your back on that and you say, no, I'm not going to eat animal food, you are turning your back on this mysterious, mysterious phenomenon of animal sacrifice for human beings. I don't know where your ancestors are from, but believe me, they do eat beef in India.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Bangladesh, but it's around the corner. I'm from Bangladesh, so it's around the corner. So,
but they do eat beef in India. It's a complete myth that they are, vegans in India.
Yeah.
I mean, they have all these cows producing milk and ghee, and that's a staple of the Indian diet. What are they going to do with them after they stop producing milk? They butcher them like any other culture. And then I had a farmer tell me he was a dairy farm, and when the cows no longer produced milk, you call this truck that came and took them to the abattoir. And the cows that were going to the abattoir were put aside, and he always went and thanked them and petted them, and then they went off very peacefully to the abattoir the next morning. Well, he had a cow ready to go, and the truck didn't come. And the day before he'd thanked them and everything, and the truck didn't come, and the cow went wild. She was kicking and butting her head. She wanted to go, and the truck hadn't come for her. So this is this great, beautiful mystery. And the vegan says, no, thanks. I'm not interested in your mysteries. It's the height of pride to be a vegan. I'm sorry, but I'm just That's what it is. What is the best diet for human beings? As human beings, we're obligated to do what we can to make this world a better place. And if you don't have the strength and energy to do that, you're not eating a good diet. And the problem with veganism is they're weak. They don't have a lot of energy. They don't have a lot of will forces. And there have been studies on this. They need more care. They have a poor quality of life. They have more tooth decay. They have more cancer. And so they're kind of a burden on society. And just so they can, be proud that they don't eat meat. I'm sorry. They need to really look carefully at themselves and what they're doing.
And even from a nutritional perspective, it looks like to me that it's actually more expensive to eat vegan because you'll have to consume a lot of food.
You do. You have to eat a lot of food. The other real danger to veganism today, you're eating a lot of lentils and rice and things and grains, and these are heavily sprayed with glyphosate. In the United States, they are just before harvest, and they're getting huge doses. The vegetarians are getting huge doses of Roundup.
Yeah, I've heard about that as well, and that's a lot of Roundup, glyphosate, pesticides. Especially on fruit as well. So
and don't think you aren't killing animals when you eat grains. I think it's estimated for a harvest of grain or legumes, you kill about 300 animals.
Wow. And even the avocados and almonds, I read that there's a lot of bees it killed just for that.
Well, and birds and whatever. If you eat grass-fed beef, you kill 1 animal per acre.
I just want to take a step back because we're talking about raw milk alternatives. If you can't breastfeed, you can do raw milk formula. But I know on your website there's other formulas as well if the raw milk doesn't work either, right?
Oh, we have a liver formula.
Okay.
Liver. And by the way, my husband grew up on that. And this is back in the 1930s in New Zealand. And he refused milk. And they made him liver formula, liver juice. So people knew that was the next best thing.
Is that appetizing for a child?
He thrived on it.
Oh, I just had a guest on before you, and we were saying about the taste of liver is quite unique if you're having it for the first time.
Oh, the taste of liver? Well,
Yeah.
That's why pate and sausage is so good, because you're adding a lot of things that cover up the taste. It's kind of an iron taste to it.
It is. It's an iron, like mushy and hard at the same time. But yeah, it's the benefits of liver on its own is just amazing. It's a shame that when you go to the supermarket, there's a lot of muscle meats, but there's not many offal meats.
Yes. Our job is to make offal taste good.
What would you say is your best technique to make offal taste good?
Well, I saute the livers in butter or bacon fat and add some broth and a bunch of spices and herbs. And then I put that in the food processor and make it smooth and add some butter to that, salt, spread it on sourdough bread. Delicious.
Yeah. That sounds like a nutrition powerhouse right there. So what's your day-to-day like then in terms of like what do you eat in a day now?
Most mornings I have eggs, pastured eggs. We have something on the Atlantic states here in America called scrapple. It's an old German dish, and when you were butchering the pigs, you put all the scraps in a pot with the bones, and you cook that all up, and then you blended it, and you added cornmeal, and you put it in a mold, and you slice it, and it has liver in it and other organ meats, and the broth, which is good for you, and you cook that in lard, and I have that a lot for breakfast. Some mornings I have oatmeal, which I have soaked overnight to get rid of the anti-nutrients, and I eat that with lots of butter. And so my midday meal is, that's when I usually have liver, or I found a source of very inexpensive fish eggs, caviar, which I try to eat once a week, and meat or, whatever. And then for dinner, I often don't eat dinner, but if I do, it's soup, chicken broth.
Nice, nice. What do you think about
And I have raw milk every day.
what do you think about fasting? Yeah, what do you think about fasting? What's your opinion on
I
fasting?
think the intermittent fasting is a very good idea. So you have lunch at 1 o'clock and then you don't eat till the next morning. And so if you can go more than 12 hours without food, the body gets into a toxin release mode and fat release mode. So yes, I would say that intermittent fasting is a good idea. Um, I'm a little dubious about long-term fasting. One of the reasons is because I suffer from low blood sugar if I don't eat, and uh, it makes you go crazy. So, but I think if you fast on raw milk or broth or something like that, that's fine.
Essentially, to bring up a healthy child is basically going through all the foods that you mentioned and all the foods that are in your book, right?
And there's no renunciation on this diet. You have meat, you have vegetables, you have sauces, you have sweet things, you have grains. You can have everything on this diet. Healthy soft drinks like kombucha. There's no renunciation. It's absolutely delicious. And you're never hungry. You always feel satisfied. I always like to stress that there's nothing weird about our diet. It's just choosing the right nutrient-dense foods. And eating 3 good meals a day if you're a child, maybe 2 good meals a day if you're an adult.
It sounds like to me, and someone said this to me as well, that we should, in a family home, everyone should be eating the same food. It shouldn't be a different diet for everyone.
I totally agree with that. We've got blood type diets and metabolic type diets, and honey, I don't care what kind of metabolic diet you have. You're going to eat the food that I prepared for you. You sit and partake in the family meal. Now, that puts a responsibility on the parent to make sure that the food tastes good. It's delicious. And, I always say if the children won't eat it, it's not healthy. It's not healthy food.
So this is a quick fire round, and I want quick answers, okay?
Okay.
Cool. So your first job?
My first job was a summer job. I worked in a photo lab. And the guy who ran the lab came in every morning with 5 cigars in each pocket. And he smoked those cigars in the lab all day long.
Oh my God.
First job. No, my first real job was I was a teacher.
Oh, nice. So what did you teach then?
I actually taught in what they called a learning lab for adults who couldn't read or, were trying to learn basic math and stuff like that.
So you were born to do this. You were born to teach the whole world, right?
Yeah, I guess.
3 things you cannot live without.
Butter, raw milk. I would say eggs.
Cool. Advice you would give to your younger self?
The 2 things I wish I had done was take statistics in college, which I didn't. And I would have eaten less sugar, for sure.
Was sugar back then really bad as well?
Pardon me?
Was sugar back then quite bad, like in terms of like how much sugar was out in the open, like for people to access?
So much sugar.
This is a scenario question. You're on your deathbed, surrounded by your loved ones, but you have one last meal to pick. What would it be?
I probably would be foie gras.
Foie gras. What's that exactly?
It's the liver from the fatted goose.
All right. Okay, cool. Okay, your top tips of raising healthy children?
Lots of butter. Minimize sugar.
I love books. I just absolutely love reading books. And for every guest I have on, I always ask them their book recommendations in what they're talking about. So what would your book recommendation be for someone who's first getting into what we're talking about today?
Well, Nourishing Traditions, my book, Nourishing Traditions. And then I have some other books. One is called Nourishing Fats, which I would highly recommend, and Nourishing Diets, which is about how people ate all over the world. And if you are looking to have children, the Nourishing Traditions book of baby and child care.
Brilliant, brilliant. What does health mean to you?
It means not knowing that your body is there. In other words, nothing hurts. You have strength and energy and enthusiasm for everything you do.
Where can everyone find you?
So the Weston A Price Foundation is westonaprice.org. We are really pushing memberships this year, and if you become a member, you receive our journal, our quarterly magazine. My blog is nourishingtraditions.com. And for the raw milk, it's realmilk.com.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. What's happening next for you, Sally? What's happening next this year? Anything happening?
I'm working on a couple of books, and so nothing much is happening in my social life for sure. I'm just staying home and writing.
Oh, that's brilliant. I look forward to checking out your books. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have any questions for me?
No, thank you so much. If you will send me a link to this when you posted it, we'll get it on my Facebook page.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Sally.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.